some of these. Do not want YouTube TV. Thank you very much. Okay, and no, you don't need to restore anything. That's good, and we're just going to minimize that. Tap on that, but then go back. Okay. Oh, and there's our next. I'm going. I'm already there. I'm already there.
Fabian, you ready? Are you ready?
I guess.
Oh,
I don't know.
I want to hear it again.
What about?
Yes, not yet.
Yeah, I've got one in December
Okay,
and I've got this one in January.
okay. Hello.
Hi, Erin.
All right. I was just going to ask if you could shut the door. That's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so we've got that set up. We've got the that working. Oh, and do the hide floating meetings control.
Yeah.
All right. Oops. Oh, come on. Yeah, it's a little like we're on a boat, but that's all right. All right, I think we have reached our capacity. I still got the camera going to check the front door. Gone are the days when we could just leave the doors open. But let's get down to work. It is our fifth and final group class for our studying for Torah chanting. By all means, if you would like to continue personally, privately, contact me. And we can set up times when we can do it both in person or online, whatever works for you, because this is not meant to be a, all right, you're done, go kind of experience. This is sort of giving you all the bolts, the pieces, so that you'll be able to continue to build off of this. Now, that means, of course, doing it. Something that I don't know if it's clicked in yet, but I hope it has, is that chanting is a physical skill, not just a mental skill. I imagine most of you here at some point or another have tried to learn how to ride a bike. And no matter how much you think about riding a bike, no matter how much you imagine what it's going to be like, no matter how much you try to think your strategy of, okay, this is what I'm going to do. At the end of the day, you got to get on the bike and your muscles have to learn how to position you so that you don't fall over. It's the same thing for chanting. You are training your vocal apparatus to produce certain noises at certain times with certain patterns, and they get used to it. And so you lead from one to the next, and it's not so scary. It's not so nerve-wracking, just like riding a bike. It seems really, really scary at first. And then once you're done with it, you see people riding around all the time, you know, with their phone in one hand, a coffee in the other, and crazy. But at least I wouldn't do that on the Orlando streets. But I would chant in front of people now because I know that my muscles will help me. It's not just a mental skill. And that's also something very important to remember if you're still finding it a little frustrating, is that it's not just a mental skill. Learning how to chant is not easy if you're smart. It's not hard if you're not smart. It is a very strange mixture of mental and physical skills that have to be juggled in just the right way. And nobody is great at it immediately. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of work. And some people will find some parts easier than others. That's okay. Everybody learns this at their own speed. And you guys are the brave ones who have chosen to learn it at all. So let's get down to our review, because like I said, this only happens with review. Can everyone see the TV there? Hold on, let me just push it back a little, hitting the cables. See, if this is the one advantage of the digital, everybody can see good view. Because everybody's staring at the screen. All right, hopefully everybody can see it there. Yes, good. So why are we learning how to do trouble? It adds beauty to the Torah reading. It ensures consistent flow of the reading, and it ensures the correct meaning of the reading. And that number 3 is the most important because trope is first, foremost, and absolutely central verbal grammar. Again, back in the day, we didn't all have copies of the Torah. We didn't have copies of the Chumashim with all the punctuation and everything laid it up. You had to hear exactly what was being said, and that meant it had to come through very clearly for everybody, even the people in the back of the room. Okay. Big rules we always have to remind ourselves. Every word has a trope. Every trope symbol is either a joiner or a stopper in the flow. Very important to learn those patterns. The symbol will always appear with the accented syllable. So that way you know where to do the magic music notation and also where to accent the word. The other syllables are chanted with that neutral note. Most Hebrew words are accented on the final syllable, which makes things easier. But if they aren't, just make sure you keep that extra note of the trope melody to cover that last one. Right? It's like that +1 that shows up at the end of the day, and you're like, oh, wait, I got to cover him too. Make sure that you have that in your pattern. We've gone over these now 5 times, so if there are any questions, that's fine. But if not, I'm just going to jump to the next slide. Okay. And then we have our extra little reminder rules. Trope usually comes in family blocks, which makes your life easier. The symbols will always appear in a consistent pattern, which makes your life easier. Learn the pattern and you can predict what trope is next, which makes your life easier. And the melody motif of a given trope doesn't change, with the exception of munach. But remember, munach is consistent with its buddy. It's not consistent by itself. Just have a munach floating through the ether. We don't know what it sounds like. Put it next to somebody, and he will always say the same melody with the person that he's next to. Good? Good. All right. So let me just move this a little bit so it is not blocking any of the words. Let's go through our review. We're going to do this together and see how comfortable we're getting. Okay. So from the beginning together, let's see if we can do this first time together. Excellent. One more time, because repetition is wonderful. And then almost the same, but for the end of a verse. One more time. If we were at the very end of a whole Torah reading, we would still be doing Sof Pasuk. It would still be this family arrangement, but we would do something with a little extra flourish. One more time. And very important that you remember that that flourish for either the regular or for the end of an aliyah happens on the tipcha, on that up skateboard ramp. Even if it is the second to last, the third to last, wherever it might happen to be in this family unit, that's where that flourish happens. Sometimes people get into a bit of a rut, and they always try to sing this right next to the end. It doesn't always go there. You have to actually look at the trope and make sure you get it in the right spot. Oh, I'm going to skip, but we haven't done kadma through cut tone at the bottom. Okay, ready? Now, play along. I'm going to give you a melody without the name, just a da 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 da, and I'd like you to tell me what you think might come next. Okay? You can raise your hand if you want. If you're feeling nervous, you can jot it down if you're not willing to say it out loud just yet. You can just keep it in your mind and go off the honor system. Although I would like someone to try and put their voice to follow up mine. But play along even if you're not willing yet to just throw yourself out there in front of the traffic. Okay, so why don't we start with what I just sung? Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. If you want to name the trope, that's okay. If you want to tell me what you think might be next, that's okay. Right, so I gave you the tipcha, exactly. That was the tipcha. What would be likely to come next? Muna would be option number one, or remember you can jump sometimes. Tipcha, or tipcha, sofasu. Right, there are a couple of options. Tipcha is one of those anchor ones, which means there are multiple varieties. All right, let's try one a little bit different. Ba 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 bum. Ba 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 bum. Ba 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 bum. Pashta is the most likely one to come next, because I did ma pa ha. Pashta would be the most likely follow-up, and that's almost guaranteed. Sometimes you can get an interesting combo in the Torah where you'll do ma pa ha pashta, and then another ma pa ha. You can sometimes get like an incomplete family arrangement. That's why I said, and back in the big rules, they usually show up in family blocks. Family isn't always there, and sometimes you don't make it to the end, which is our anchor person. So yes, but generally speaking, after that melody, you're going to get a da da coming right after it. How about do 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 do? So fast, not so fast.
At
At exactly, because I gave you the Muna et nachta, Muna et nachta. All right, great. That's just a little bit of it. Whoa. I remember that sound. Okay, let's go ahead to our second review page. Starting from the top. Darka Tivir. One more time. Darka Tivir. All right, next family. Admave Asla. One more time. Admave Asla. Excellent. And now all four. It's me. It's from my students. Okay. Hello. Oh, you're outside. I didn't see you. Okay, well, we'll get the door. Just be there in a second. Oh, and there she is on the camera. See, it's too hard to split attention between different things. Since Joel's doing me a favor, I'm not going to go on. I'll just take a drink. Don't worry, it's tea. Screen bigger, just in case someone else shows up. Hello. Okay, so these last guys on the bottom row, remember, they're not a group family. That's why I put these little gray separators between them. They can come as part of the Rivi family. Sometimes they'll even seem to stand on their own. I gave you a number of different options in the PDF printouts that we began the class with, that you printed out for yourselves. Okay, so we're going to go through them each individually. Oh, and of course, Yativ is technically part of the Katon family, but he doesn't fit in nicely on the other page. Gershai, Gershai, then Munach Legarme, Munach Legarme, Elisha Gedola. Time. And then last, Yativ, everyone's favorite. Okay. I also really enjoy doing Talisha Gedolah because it's my perfect reminder of that neutral note rule. Talisha Gedolah. They got all those da 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 da. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you get really super long words or two words with that little hypheny looking thing between them. And you feel like you're just not getting to the trope, and that's okay, right? Don't think I need to make this fancy. Remember, this is not singing, this is chanting. And if the chanting tells you keep going on that straight line, you keep going on that straight line. Ours is not the reason why. Okay, so let's do a couple other predictive practices. I'll give you an option from this page. I'm not doing both pages. And then you tell me what you think might come next. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Excellent. To be here. Da da. To be here. All right, let's try the good friend. Da da. Da da. It's a little higher than I did in the recording. I'm doing the munach, and that means it's followed up by revi, munach, revi. Now, depending upon what you're chanting, the pronunciation of the words, how fast you're going, you may or may not make munach as noticeable when it's in front of revi. Sometimes it gets almost just munach, revi. You get to the fancier part that comes in, and that's okay. Most of the other guys here are hard to just insert randomly, so we will move on to our final review page. Okay. Munah, right? That little hill. Munah, darkam, munah, sego, munah, darkam. Now that first munach is also the same munach that we use when we want to put it in front of, for example, pazer. So if I was going to do a munach pazer combo, it would also be munach pazer pazer, and then Tlisha Kehana. And then, of course, these are all three on the bottom are all separate, but we will sometimes see a Zakef Gadol. Zakef Gadol. Excellent. Zakef Gadol often will just be entirely by himself. So that's just something to recognize, not as part of a family, but just he's big enough because he's Gadol that he doesn't need a family to be with him. He's the loner. All right. Any questions over any of the trope that we've gone through? Okay. Oh, yes.
What's the difference between the first munach and the second munach?
So the first munach is a munach, da di da, just goes up a little and then back down. This munach starts at wherever you finish your zarka and you hold it, and then you pop up on sigol. So it's just zarka, ha 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 ha. This is my low note because this is what's comfortable for me. Munach, munach, continues that same note. Segol, and then I pop up on the next word. Zarka, but if I was higher, zarka, munach is the same note. Segol, and then I would pop up on that.
Just like a connection, the little.
It's just a connection, exactly. It's saying, but it's saying hold the note that you finish your zarka on until you get to the sigol word, and then pop up. But again, you only pop up once you actually get to the accented syllable. So if there's 5 syllables before you get to the symbol, then you're just going to keep hold that low note until you get there. And yeah, that's the way it's going to sound. And that's okay. Good question. Any others? All right, then I think it is time for me to hear. I'm sorry, for me to hear from some of you. It's an old habit I picked up when I used to be teaching English, of a way of punctuating, because it would.
Does it hurt?
It doesn't, but it would break the tension in the room because everyone would wince and then they'd shake themselves free a little bit. And for the record, my students in Japan didn't like it either. All right, so we looked at this section last time, but you were all given the homework to try and find a verse, whether it was here or anywhere else from chapter 10 that you wanted to practice, or maybe more than one. So now is your chance for me to hear you. And yes, other people are going to hear you too. It's okay. It's okay. We are all here to be safe and friendly with each other. So I'm not going to pick on anyone. If anyone doesn't want to go today, that's okay. If anyone wants to set up a private time, that's okay. But I would encourage you to try it now, because it is nice to be part of this learning process and realize that this is okay. It's safe. Nobody here is going to laugh at anyone. Do I have any volunteers? Anybody who's prepared something they would like to share? So you have to tell us which one you're doing.
The first.
The first one. Okay, so we are on chapter 10, verse 1, right? And that, by the way, is a good habit to get into, to think about what is my chapter, what is my verse. That way you're thinking in terms of the Torah structure, and it makes it easier when you say, Rabbi Neely, I have an aliyah, I'm doing chapter 10, verses 1 through 3. I'll know immediately what to make if you want a recording. I know I made you do this without a recording because I want you to break your teeth, but in the long term, I will make recordings for anybody who asks anytime. All right, so you can do it from the book there, or you can do it from up here, whichever is easier. I do have extra copies of the large print version, if that would be easier. Does anyone else want a copy to work off of? I've got one more big print. And then I have the other parallel print, the Tikkun style. Okay, so whenever you're ready.
Your name Adonai El Moshe Bo the El O Tida Nida Batida Ed Lebo
Libo.
Libo the Ed Leif Avada Leman an Shitida
Ototai.
Ototai
All right, so the pronunciation was coming along right. The melodies, you are making it more complicated than it needs to be. What I think is happening is what happens for many students is it sounds too boring, right? If I just do Adonai, it doesn't sound like I've done enough.
Right.
And so they like to put a couple up and down alongside of it. But you have to be okay with it being simpler,
Right.
so that it's just Vayomer Adonai El Moshe. It's you have to clip out all of the extra notes that aren't actually part of the trope. That's the thing, is the trope saves us from having to improvise the melody. And then once we've learned da 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 da, I just have to learn those notes, and then I can use them every time the mapach shows up. So just let's do the first three words. Just try to work with me here. Vayomer Adonai El Moshe. Exactly. Hear how that's like a little simpler, a little less up and down bits.
Right.
So this will be this is being recorded, so you can go back and listen to your version when you get home. Compare it. Okay. Did I just push the blood pressure up? Right, but that's a good thing, and I do recommend, by the way, that when you are practicing, and yes, this hits to a deep fear in most of us and a deep discomfort, make a recording of yourself and then listen to it, right? It's terrifying because if you're like me, you hate the sound of your voice, because it sounds very different when it's coming out of your mouth than when it's being conducted through your skull. And so our voice does sound very different. It just sounds foreign. It's like, that's not me. But putting that aside, you can hear yourself more clearly than when you're in the midst of trying to get it out. And then you can notice, oh, I did that really well, or oh, I skipped that part, or oh, I must have gotten confused and did that other melody by mistake. And it makes it much easier sometimes to proofread yourself, because proofreading yourself while you're actually chanting is very hard, because you kind of think it's right, or else you wouldn't be doing it. Although, also if you get that little bit of a feeling of that didn't sound right after it came out of my mouth, that's okay. That's the feedback loop telling you that it doesn't match the recording in your brain, and that's okay. So then you can stop, either double check the melody on the trope, use the MP3 files that you guys all got, and try and realign. Okay, thank you for breaking the ice and starting off. Here we go. Another person.
Volunteer.
Okay,
That's
another
the first
volunteer.
one.
I thought you were in the military. Didn't you learn never to volunteer?
Yeah, you know what Navy stands for? You know, Robert, what Navy stands for? Never again volunteer yourself.
Exactly. You volunteered once when you signed up, and then never again. Okay, so chapter and verse for us.
First one.
First verse. All right. So did everybody pick the first verse?
No.
No. Okay.
All right. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe boel paro.
I'm just gonna pause you there, right? I know it's throwing you off, but after Moshe, we need a pause,
Okay.
right? Adonai el Moshe. That's it.
Vayomer Adonai el Moshe boel paro.
I think you gave me a little bit more of the tikka on the paro. It should be bo.
Okay. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe bo el paro.
Yes.
Ki ani hikvati et libo.
Oh, that's another pashta. So it's going to be at libo.
Et libo be'et lev abda.
That would be the et lev avada.
Et lev abada leman sheti ohotai ele bekirbo.
Very nice, very nice. And nice variation on the in. Some people will do a sof pasuk that's a little bit lower noted. Some will do a higher note. So it can be bekir boho or bekir boho. Both are variations that you will hear a lot. All right. Thank you very much, Joseph. I sort of did yours as we went, so I'm not going to give a full dissection afterwards.
Sure.
Probably easier if I do it as we go along. Okay. Any other brave souls that are willing to follow?
Sure.
Yes.
So I did 8 and they did 9. So
Chapters verse 8 and 9. Okay, so I guess that means you're going first because you picked 8. There we are.
Vayushav et Moshe et Aaron el Paro Vayomer alehem lechu ivdu et Adonai Elohechem mi vami pahokim.
Very nice. There's really not much for me to say. The only thing was your Vayomer felt a little shortish, but that is a little bit of a secret. That's not a secret. I'm recording it and putting it on YouTube. But when you've been chanting for a long time, you learn sort of certain phrases become more condensed. And Vayomer is used so much, and he said, and he said, and he said, because that's how you introduce the conversation, that oftentimes that gets a little truncated. So it wasn't a mistake. It was just, I want to make sure that you know the full melody before you get into the smooth version. Very good. Should we go on to 9?
Sure.
Okay, I don't want to, force you just because we did 8, because we did 9.
Makes sense. Vayomer Moshe ben Arenu uviskanenu me'eleh Bevanenu uvivnotenu. Oh, yeah. Okay. Bevanenu uvivnotenu.
Is it too hard to read from the side?
Oh, no, it's a name. Oh, okay. The Vitsonenu, Uvi Karenu, Neve, He Karadonai, Lanu.
Good, and you got the lanu, the accent on the la, because that's where the little vertical line, the metcheke. Excellent, excellent job. Okay, so yes, that kind of combo, vivanenu uvivnotenu, right? Your sons and your, or rather our sons, our daughters. It's a mouthful, absolutely. And as a technique, whenever you're dealing with a mouthful, is don't try and put it all in your mouth at once. Hebrew, unlike English, is something that can be really, really dissected into syllables. So you can, over here so I can get my finger in the way. You just cover up the parts you're not working on right now, right? Bit, va, ne, nu, bit, va, ne, nu. You can break that down. Bit, va, ne, nu, u, vi, no, he, nu. You can cut it into pieces. One of the things that Joseph was showing before class began was a little bit of software called Trope Trainer, which I've mentioned in passing a few times. And when you play it, it sounds like a robot because it's a computer program doing it. They didn't actually make a person record the whole Torah, although you can find the whole Torah chanted online by a human being. But the reason they could do that is because the trope is very mechanical and Hebrew is very mechanical. It would be almost impossible to do that with English. But use that to your advantage. Cut the word up, and it makes it a little bit easier to get through it without stumbling over anything. Good.
I had one quick, when I was practicing, I had a lot of trouble going from, for example, Kadma Ve'asla to Mapach Pashak Haton, like, and keeping the tone the
Your
same.
pitch?
But yeah, my pitch, I
Yes.
was like, because I recorded myself, like you said, and I listened and it sounded crazy. So I that really sound less like all over the place.
This is the first thing. Secondly, is oftentimes the way you remember it will be, oh, that's a high one. And sometimes that will tilt you higher than your normal one because it's become part of the mnemonic. So specifically with Kadma Ve'asla, we have a tendency to exaggerate it, and then we overcompensate for mapach, because that's the low one. And sometimes if you use those types of self-references, then it can tweak your pitch. So practice, mapaha, regardless of what comes in front of it. And once you practice all of them discreetly, then will be easier to link into,
Okay.
because you'll have your comfort level. And ultimately that's where you're aiming for all of this, is finding your comfort zone of what are my high notes, what are my low notes, and how do I keep recentering myself when I need to. Now, some of the places where we recenter automatically are the etnasta and the sof pasuk. Right? Use those breaks, breathe, allow your throat to unclench and prepare for the next section. It may feel like, oh no, I'm taking too long of a breath there. It's really not a long time, right? It's okay. So, after Nelech, and then you can keep chomping through. If you need to take a little bit of a break between these types of tropes to reset as well, that's okay. Remember the big rule, you don't stop when it's not a stopper, but when it is a stopper, you can stop. So you don't want to stop between vivanenu uvivnotenu, but stopping right afterwards to reset yourself, to recalibrate for what comes next, that's okay. We do that all the time. If someone suddenly gets an itch in their throat and they need to stop and clear their throat. If someone gets an itch, or someone's phone goes off in the sanctuary and it distracts the reader, sometimes there'll be unscheduled pauses. That's okay. And you just sort of learn how to get used to it, but also learn to take advantage of allowing yourself that pause to reset. For those of you that are regular attendees, sometimes you'll see me chanting and you'll see me pause and reset because the melody might have just flipped out of my brain for that minute and I need to find it again and get back into the group. All right, more volunteers.
23, I can do 23.
23. Do I have 23? Yes, okay, but only in the small version. So you're welcome to use the big version or or one of the other ones. All right, so 23. Lo ra'u, yes?
Lo ra'u is a ahi ahi velo.
So below, does it have a trope?
No,
No, so flat, neutral, right?
velo kadmu
Yeah.
kadmu is mita mitata mitata shelo she yamin ul ha bene
Oh, hold on. That is not a ha, that is a ul hol.
ul ho.
That's the kamatz katan. Remember the little T-shaped vowel? 10% of the time, close unaccented syllables, it is different. Now, this particular digital version here does not show that. In the printout, it should look a little bigger than the other ones around it, depending upon how big of the printout you're looking at. And so that is your clue that that's an O sound. So the other thing to know is also that every time you see whole or full, it's always going to be O, because that's the Hebrew word for all, and that word comes up all the time. Ul-hol b'nei.
Ul-hol bene.
Darga is darga. So what's bene? Bene.
Israel.
Yeah, there you are.
Haya or.
Mercha is not that fancy.
Haya or.
Oh, because you're at the end of aliyah. Or you're trying to do the end of the aliyah melody?
No.
Or just the end of the verse?
Haya or. Bemo shebotar.
There you go. Nice ending. So I will recommend to not only you, but to everybody, don't be afraid of the notes. Right. Sometimes it's tempting to try to use fewer notes or to sort of, close the range down again, teep ha rather than teep ha. And that's tempting. I get it. But I think I mentioned maybe second class, or no, first class at the end. It's tempting, but it's not helpful long term, because if you squish them, then they all start to sound the same. And that makes it harder to remember what they're supposed to be. And that means it's harder to hear the grammar as you go through. And those extra notes, like those pauses, those are also a place where you're not worried about what comes next. So when I sing or rather than or, I got 2 extra notes of my brain not having to struggle on a word, because I'm just making the and that melody, I've practiced enough that I know it, so I can do those notes, and then my eyes can even double check what's coming next. And get ready. And then again, stretching out some notes. I now have a little more time before I go to whatever might come next. So don't be afraid of singing more notes. I know most of you are kind of like me. You're not native-born natural singers who just love the thought of getting up at karaoke night and grabbing the mic and saying, all right, everybody, let's do all of our favorite Beatles hits. But it's not, it may seem like it is safer to just shut down the melody a little bit, cut it up and smush it, but it's really making your life harder because it's harder to remember, it's harder to say, it's easier to get lost. And it makes you go faster than you need to, or it makes you also throw in extra notes you don't need. And then that little part of your brain that has the recordings that you've been listening to now for 5 weeks says, I don't remember that sound. And then you get that self-doubt. And then you get that little tension inside of you. Like, did I just say something wrong? I don't remember, did I? The more consistent you get, the easier it is to shut up that voice. Because it's like, oh yeah, I know, da, 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 da. I've heard it 5,000 times. I know it, I recognize it, keep going, good job, right? You train the little voice inside of you to be positive too, and not keep criticizing. Maybe I'm speaking too much personal experience. All right. Any other volunteers? I will give people a chance to go through a second time if you like, but I want to go through everybody who's willing to do it tonight first. Yes, Fabian. I know, Fabian, you've been practicing with a different melody set because,
I don't know.
well,
Just tell me if I'm doing okay.
okay.
That's
Which chapter verse?
First verse,
First verse.
chapter 10.
Chapter 10, first verse. There we go.
ויאמר אדוני אל משה בוא אל פרעה
Good, but you don't need to make L anything fancy. Just oh, L, par, oh, right? L and par should both be at that same note.
אל פרעה כי אני איש
Ish,
איבדתי את ליבו
at libo, hashta, and then a little pause, right? Avada, avada, et lev, avada.
למען
Good.
שתהיו אותותיי אלה בקרבו
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. What I want to double check is your lama'an and your shiti, the melody for your rivi'i and the melody for your tivir, because they sounded very, very similar.
I know, I keep saying, I've got to go down with the ma.
Well, exactly. For lama'an, it is down and only down. Well, I mean, don't get anybody here reading music, but it's lema'an, right? Lema'an, lema'an. It's all in my mind visualizing dropping sounds. Whereas Shiti, our diver, he dives into the water and hits a deep plunge right off that first note. Shiti, and then he swims up. He, and he comes back up. So he drops low. They both are dropping, but he comes back up for air. This guy stays down at the bottom of the pool for a while. Because he's a rock. He boom, sinks.
But I don't need that I go up.
For the
Lema,
so I think where it happens is, and this is a sort of common issue, is when you finish a trope, especially one that's in the middle of a word, not on the end. After you're done, you feel like you should get ready for the next one, and your voice naturally rises back up again, especially from dropping notes or from high notes. But you have to hold the note for wherever you are until that word is done. The same thing can happen, although I haven't heard it in this class. Sometimes when people are just saying the words, they can begin to close their mouth at the end of a word, and suddenly it turns into like you get a little bit of that fricative of your lips vibrating at the end because it's being closed off, or even if it goes completely, it becomes a mm. And I have oftentimes with bar mitzvah students, a problem with them trying to close their mouth prematurely because they're so nervous about doing it that they end up clamping an extra or at the end of a word. The same thing can happen with the melodies, is that you're trying to finish it off a little earlier, and that means you're coming back up to a neutral note or coming down to a neutral note. When at the end of a word we don't go neutral. At the end of the word we finish the melody as it should be. It gets that extra note of the actual trope melody, and then she is where we come back up. So you want to try lema'an for me? Lema'an. That's it. Exactly. How hard was it to fight the bounce at the end? You wanted to come back up a little bit, didn't you? Yeah, I could tell, right? Because it feels weird.
It does.
One way to sort of also work on that is to try and do just the notes that are on the ma. Le ma, and then remind yourself, I need to save one. Le ma, and then that safe one is on, it's just that last one. Cutting up the syllable, covering up what you don't need is a way of sort of focusing in on just the part that's giving you any trouble. Le ma, on, and it can make it a little bit easier. The other thing to do, of course, is to try and remind yourself of the actual trope. Rivi, close your eyes and then look at the word. Rivi, and then you can go straight to melody. Da da dee da 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 dum. Da da dee da 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 dum. Lama, lama, and then it's easier to paste it onto the word. Whenever there's a trope that's giving you trouble for applying it, just say the trope by itself in its proper form, just with its name. Say the trope just as notes, da 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 da, for Gershayin, for example, and then try to marry it to the word. But only marry it to start on the syllable where the magic happens. Let me give you just another example on a different word, like ki ani. If the Gershayin was causing me trouble, I would just do me. I don't need to worry about ki ani because they've got no melody to them. All right, once I get my ni comfortable, then I can go back ki ani, and now I can put all the pieces together. Remembering that the melody goes where the trope symbol is. That's the syllable that where the magic happens. Can sometimes let you focus on that and not get over tongue-tied by all the other syllables around it. Okay, I think we have a few people who haven't gone. Is anyone else planning to go today? Yes, good. Okay.
I'm gonna do the second one.
Second verse. Got it.
Ulam Himsape being as name being high.
Quick watch the pause there. Two little things for that. Bit O's nay. That's the O's sound because you see how it's bigger. Bit O's nay, and then vinha. Bit O's nay vinha.
Being O's name being high.
This is actually it's called a diphthong, one of my favorite words, which I use at every opportunity. What's happening is you're finishing your and you're letting your throat relax, and it's dragging it towards the E sound, so it becomes I. And
I add one more syllable.
you're adding a syllable. Well, you're adding technically another part of the vowel. So you need to finish with vin ha, and stop breathing before you move on to the next one. Because otherwise that vowel, the throat shape will drag your vowel down into an I sound. Hebrew does have that occasionally, but not here.
Being high.
Same issue. Vin ha.
Being
Ha.
Asher Pit Awalkim Being Mitzrayim the 8 Ototai
Totai.
Ototai
And there's the I sound.
Asher Samti
Samti, just two notes. Samti.
Samti Bam
Yep.
the Gakem Ki Adonai.
Very nice. And you picked a hard verse. That is a challenging one, but you did that very well. So yeah, like I said before, make sure that you are starting and finishing the syllables and the notes cleanly, because otherwise extra either vowels or consonants can sometimes creep in. And oftentimes you don't even notice that you're doing it. Because your mouth is just relaxing and you don't think you're speaking, but you just made a new consonant in that word, and well, that's not right. So it's nice, clean sounds. So if you've ever been around Israelis, you may have noticed they have a very distinct accent, right? Hamburger. Right? That's because Hebrew is very precise because of its vowels and consonants and syllable constructions. Hebrew is not, English is not. We mush everything together. Other languages, I don't know so well. But we have to make sure that for Hebrew, we're nice, clean, cutting, starting, finishing, vowels, consonants, keeping everything straight. It makes, again, your life easier. I know it feels persnickety, but it keeps it in order, and that makes it easier to remember. Because it's the same way every time, then you only have to learn it once. I think only one person hasn't really chanted. Are you? You don't have to go. You don't have to go. What?
Okay, I didn't practice.
Okay, so would anyone like to take a second stab at their version, or a different verse if you learn more than one? Julie, you want to take a try number 2?
I will do number 1.
Verse number 1? Okay.
Ayomer Adonai
Adonai, don't come down. Adonai,
Adonai El Moshe Bo El O Ani Ich bau Dati
Ifbadati,
Ich Badati at the O the at the Avatar the Man
you got to keep only down. Leman.
the Man
That's it. That's it. She, he.
She
Mhm.
Ototai
Ototai is just for mercha. Mercha. Ototai.
Ototai and the
Mhm. Ele.
Here
Very nice, very nice. I'd like to hear that almost everybody's got that ending down, really solid. Dun, 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 dun. Doesn't it feel like you're crossing a finish line when you get to that end of the verse? And it's just, yeah, like from a marathon, you're like, make it to the end of it. And that is a wonderful, wonderful feeling. I'm speaking from personal experience. Yes.
Question. I've noticed that each verse ended with this one. It's a
Sof pasuk. Yes, that sof pasuk means end of verse. So every verse will always finish with dun 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 dun. That is your guaranteed finish for. I tell a lie. I think there's one verse where that gets skipped. It's kind of a weird one. But yes, apart from that one verse, you always are going to finish with your dun 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 dun, because that's telling everybody in the room, I just finished. And it's the same thing in English, or any language. There are always vocal clues to tell people I'm done with what I just said. Because otherwise I could keep talking forever and you wouldn't know if I was done or if I was still planning to keep going. Right, that's the example in English. If we have any sort of rising intonation at all, then the expectation is I've got a placeholder on the conversation. I'm still talking. You have no idea when I'm about to finish. But as soon as I drop my tone, then you know I'm done. We do it subtly in English, to protect the speaker. We don't want the Torah to be subtle. We want the Torah to be clear. We want people to understand. And that's why we work so hard to make sure it comes through that way. Yes.
I'll try.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna do 3.
Verse number 3. Got it.
Guide me, Rabbi, please.
That's why I'm here.
Okay, Vayavo.
Don't make it harder for yourself. That's just the kadma.
Vayavo. Moshe.
Well, this one is our, remember, it's our, before our, Zarka, so it's Moshe, Moshe,
Moshe.
because we have that little worm dealing next.
Moshe. Moshe. Ve'aharo.
The aharo. Right, the worm going down into the dirt.
Emparo.
Good.
Vayomer.
Vayomeru.
O Vayomeru. Ela.
Oh, you were so close, and then you floated back up in the middle. But it's the diamond, it's Rivi, Rivi, all down, all down.
Okay. Ela. O Amar.
Amar, O Amar.
Amar. Adonai.
Mhm.
Elohim.
Hello, hey,
Elohim.
hey, get that little extra
Elohim.
somersault in there. Right? Hello, hey, because it tells you that that one is different than the other, and it gets you ready for hello, hey, da, dee, da, for the next melody.
Ave. Elohim.
Hello, hey,
Elohim. Ha'irim.
free.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I think that- we're good. Remember, the rules are we don't apologize for this.
Okay.
You've done nothing wrong, nothing worth apologizing for. You just fix it, and then it gets a little better, a little better, a little better. Free.
Ha'irim.
That's it.
Admatai.
Oh, same melody that you just had. Hello, hey, Adma.
Admatai.
Me anta. Me anta. Right. It has to be the on that's getting the spike because that's where the two dots are. Me anta.
Leabo.
Oh, that's a nun. Le no.
I'm sorry, leabo. Mipanan.
Mi pa nine. Don't make it fancy, just make it strong.
Panan. Shala.
Shala. Again, no fancy, just mercha. Mercha. Shala.
Ami.
Ami. There's our little twist. Ami.
Benim.
Beya.
Benim.
Do. Beya.
Do.
Ipaha. Beya. Abduni. That's it. That's it. All right. Great challenge. Great challenge. Anyone else? How you feeling? Okay. So it is not a simple thing. I'm going to do just one more verse because we have a couple extra minutes, and I don't want to put anyone else on the spot. Let's just see if I can find a good example here for the time we've got left for what I want to do. Too long or too short. Okay, how about we're going to do verse number 7. So we're chapter 10, verse number 7. If you have the handout, that's fine. If you want to look on the monitor, that's fine too. All right, so I want to show you what we talked about, to bring it together to put the pieces of how to practice this. So first thing we do whenever we get to a new verse, when we get to a new word, we read it. Right? Don't try and chant and sing it at the same time until you've been doing this for a while. Vayomeru. 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 Everyone okay why we got Vayomeru for that word, right? We got the heavy dots there, that's shpana, so we're going to hear it. That dot in the yud doesn't make any vocal difference. Vayomeru. Okay, good. Then I have to identify what's my trope. Anyone want to tell me what that trope is? Exactly, and it's perfectly fine, as Joseph is showing, to look at the cheat sheet. Right, this is not a place where you have to be like, oh no, I'm not allowed to use this on the test. You're not allowed to use it on the Bima, but you can absolutely use it when you're practicing, and you should, right? Eventually you'll know them and you won't have to look it up, but that only happens when you use it. So, Talisha Kitana sounds like Talisha Kitana. Talisha Kitana. Now, maybe putting Vayomeru to Talisha Kitana is too big of a jump to do it once. That's fine. Hum the word first, or hum the melody first. Bum bum ba ba bum bum. Bum 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 bum. That's the most important part, right? The Talisha Kita. The rest of that is just the neutral notes, like get it to the end. Na ha ha. Find my syllable that's going to be sung. Ru, ru, ru. Now go back. Vayomeru. Notice nothing really is happening on my Vayome, right? That's boring stuff, which is good. Boring stuff is easy. Vayomeru. And then we do the same for our next two words. I take a look and I see, well, that's a which stroke? Before we get to the reading, I just want to show you why I need to read two words. Kadma, Kadma, very good. And then followed up by, because Kadma is always a linker, so I need to know what comes next because it's going to flow. Not a pashta, that would still be like that. That is the azla, exactly. Kadma ve azla, right? They make that lovely little rainbow shape. And I think they have a nice rainbow flourish to them personally. So now I know I need to read these two words together. I also know that because I know how Hebrew grammar works, and I know that these two words are a compound word. It is av day, bar o. And we know that this is now a compound word, definitely because a pay at the beginning of a word will always get a dot, unless it's the second half of a compound word. So the fact that there's no dot there tells me this has to be a compound word. The servants or the attendants to Pharaoh is what we're talking about here. So I've got Kadma ve'azla. How does that go again? Kadma ve'azla. Kadma ve'azla. Bum 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 bum. All right, let's do it in the pieces. Kadma, Kadma. Okay. Day. Very simple, right? Don't have to get anything fancier than that. Day. And then bum 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 bum. That's a little fancier. So all I have to do is drag bar into that. Bar 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 bar. And what's the most important step? Going back and linking it up. Vayomeru. One more word, I think, for tonight we'll do it because it's everybody's favorite word for tonight, or its favorite word and trope. Elav. And what's the trope? Revi. Everybody's favorite, right? Revi only goes down. Revi. La. Elav. And now I can put this whole Revi phrase together because this is a Revi family trip. Vayomeru. Sorry, Vayomeru. Let's do a clean version where the rabbi doesn't make a mistake. Vayomeru. And boom, one family is down. Now, that probably seems time consuming. It is. It gets faster. It gets easier. But the more you do that now, the more you're building up those memories of the correct melodies and the pattern of how to learn it. And it'll get faster and faster and faster every time you do it. But if you try and rush through it, if you go, okay, okay, I know that. I'm moving on to a lav without going back and doing the rest, then you're just learning each chunk for a moment, And that's not forming a nice block for you to hold on to in your mind. And it's going to be very hard for you to pick up the actual melodies. You'll just be learning paro rather than azla. Because paro comes and go, azla is forever. Right? The tropes consistently are something you'll use 1,000 times. The individual word, those change with every single Torah reading. But over the course of a year. Next year you'll see them again. But what are the odds you'll be chanting the same word next year? All right. Any questions or comments before we finish up for tonight? And this will bring our official group lessons to a conclusion. I want to congratulate all of you for sticking with it for, I guess it's a total of 6 weeks because we had Thanksgiving off, or rather you were practicing privately, not just stuffing yourself with turkey. But it is a lot of time that you have put into this. It is a lot of effort that's put into this, and you have already got a huge head start now on being able to chant Torah for yourself. And whether you do that by yourself in the comfort of your own home, just as a way to read through the weekly parasha, or whether you do it as a form of meditation, or whether you do it on the bima, having this skill is an important part of broadening your Jewish literacy and your Jewish skill set. If you are interested in continuing to refine it for your personal use or for the bima, let me know. And I'm happy to meet with you to work on a particular aliyah or on particular issues you might be having or places you're stumbling. If you're ever practicing for something and you just want to send me a recording, you can send me an audio file or a video file, and I'll be happy to review it and say, yes, this is good. Yes, this needs work. And you will continue to improve. But like riding the bike, you got to keep getting on the bike. Otherwise, the muscles lose their memory and it becomes much harder again. So consistently, once every couple months, once every 6 weeks, eventually maybe every once a month, you get that pattern and that cycle in, and it can go. But remember, you want to try and get all those components working together consistently so that the melody, the pronunciation, the flow links. And once they get linked, you'll never lose it. It really does get faster. Okay. All right. That's it for the end. The platypus has told me.
I'm gonna pass it down to the Robin.
Stop share.
Oh, okay.